Hello, Red Nail Energy listeners. This is Mikhail, and I have an exciting guest on the podcast today that I was able to actually meet in person at a recent creator conference. Susie Bulloch founded Hey Grill Hey in 2015 with one desire: to help people make better barbecue. To date, she has created over 550 recipes that millions of people cook every month, making Hey Grill Hey a name synonymous with amazing barbecue. Susie and her husband Todd run a family business that includes a line of signature barbecue rubs, sauces, and grilling tools. So welcome to the pod, Susie.
Thank you for having me. It's so fun to be on the podcast after meeting you in real life and hearing the whole vision for the thing. So this is exciting.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, getting to meet you and just, a few of the different people that I was able to connect with was, I think, what propelled me to be like, this is possible. And especially getting to hear more about your origin story and just understanding that it's not going to be this linear process where everything magically falls into place. I think sometimes hearing about the struggles of others that are in such a furthered along place than you are is actually what you need to know. Okay, you've got to keep going. I've got to keep, stay the course. And so, it was such a blessing to get to meet you and hear more about your story.
Yeah, this will be great. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love to kind of just dive in and hear a little bit about what you were doing before you decided to start Hey Grill Hey, and then what kind of pushed you to make a big change. I know you've spoken about kind of being fed this millennial dream, and there's things that are supposed to go a certain way and look a certain way. And you finally got to a point of just like, this is not the life for me. This is not the way it feels like it's supposed to be. So love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us in kind of this generation were told the same or very similar stories. You know, you get the good grades at school, you go to college, you get the career, you get the spouse, the house, the kids,
Okay.
and that's the happily ever after. And I found myself 6 months into that. We literally, within 6 months, we had moved so my husband could start his job. We'd both graduated with our degrees. We bought a house and I had a baby, like just in a very whirlwind.
You had it all.
We did. We checked all the boxes so fast. And I found myself in this space of being a stay-at-home parent. That was kind of our initial arrangement was, okay, my husband's going to take his career and pursue a corporate job. I'm going to stay home and raise the kids for kind of this period of time. I had a degree, but I didn't have like a set job after I graduated, and my husband did. So that was kind of the plan. And I found myself with an infant in a house, and I called my mom and I was like, what do I do now? Mm-hmm. Like I really didn't have any concept or plan for what life looked like after the boxes had been checked. Mm-hmm. Do I make new boxes? Like I didn't, right. It was kind of this, like this whole next part of my life was unplanned and unanticipated. And yes, like taking care of a child required a lot of time and energy, but I was used to living a very high-paced, high achievement, high accomplishment, success-driven lifestyle with all of the box checking. Right. And to find myself in a position where nobody was asking me to check any more boxes was a little bit jarring. So I did the first thing that I could think of was then I got a job so that somebody could give me more boxes to check because I didn't know what to do. Yeah. But I still wanted that freedom to be home with my baby. I wanted the time freedom to choose kind of when I worked. Mm-hmm. So I found the world of like online virtual. I was basically a virtual assistant and an online content creator for somebody who owned their own website. Mm-hmm. And this was back in the day of like early blogging, early social media, pre-Instagram. Like blogs were kind of the spot where the information was at that point in time. So I was stalking this lady's website because she posted grocery store deals and some recipes and some, like discounts that she was finding online. And I was broke because we were living on one income. So I was like, this is perfect. Right. We just bought a home. We needed all the money saving tips we could. So I like fell hard into couponing and like that money saving kind of world and ended up getting a job for her website, which I was already reading religiously anyway. So that's how I found myself in kind of like this shifting from the millennial dream to a side hustle and to being an online entrepreneur. And my husband was working as a CPA at the time. And so while I was kind of building this little side hustle, side income, he was kind of our main stable support system
Yeah.
when it came to our family income. And I did that for several years. I worked for 3 or 4 different websites and companies and brands, helping them kind of build up their online content. And yeah, that's how I found myself in like that digital marketing online space.
Mm-hmm.
And it was outside of that traditional millennial dream that I had heard so much about. And so when I had kind of worked for all of these different companies, one of them was a barbecue and grilling company that wanted to digitize their recipe library. So I started cooking barbecue so that I could write with authority on barbecue, and just really fell in love with it. Like it was kind of just that one side hustle that stuck.
Yeah.
And I'd found a real like creative spark and a passion that I hadn't experienced in a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was like lightning bolt kind of experience where I was like, oh, I think I could do this forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for them for a while, and at one point I found myself like I wasn't working for them anymore. I didn't have any of my other little side hustles that I'd kind of kept. And my husband had been probably 6 or 7 years. I think I was probably in the industry for 6 or 7 years working for other people's websites, and didn't have any side hustles at that point. We'd had 2 more kids. So I had 3 kids at this point. And my husband was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, I'm making enough at work. Like, if you didn't want to do anything, we could survive off of just my income. Like, we don't need the side hustle income. But if you did want to do something, this might be the perfect time for you to start your own thing.
Wow.
So after all these years of working for other people, I got that question a lot. Like, why don't you just start your own thing? And I was like, no. Like, it's too much responsibility. It's too much time. I'm not that talented. I don't have the skill set. Like, I just couldn't ever.
Yeah.
But when I found myself without working for anybody else, I think those like 6 or 7 years of working for other people had kind of built up enough experience and enough confidence in me that when he said, you know, you could probably start your own thing now, that was the moment. Because I'd been asked before, but that was really the moment where I felt like, oh, maybe I actually
something clicked.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so important to speak on what you said initially, because I think it feels almost a little shame-filled to say, I have the husband, I have the baby, I have the house, I have the boxes checked, I'm supposed to be happy. And there's this really conflicting thing of, I am happy with these things I have, but what is missing, or what is kind of feeling like I need to explore more, or maybe find aspects of myself that feel like they've become lost a little bit in partnership and in motherhood. I mean, can you speak to that a little bit for anyone listening that is like, I have all the things in front of me that objectively mean I should be happy, and yet something is just stirring within me saying there's got to be something more, or where do I even start, you know?
Yeah. I think when I was in my early 20s and I was, first baby, had checked all the boxes, and I like honestly was happy. And it wasn't so much that I felt like anything was missing, except for I had been raised and trained to believe that somebody always had to be telling me what to do. Whether it was a parent or a teacher or a boss, or there were always outside expectations on my life leading up to that point. And I think a lot of people experience that in their early 20s, is like, oh no, what's the plan?
Right. Where's the adult in the room? Who's going to come tell me what to do? Where's the grown up?
I was the grown up with a baby. Like, how was I the grown up? It was such a jarring experience. So it wasn't so much that I was unhappy. I felt like I was unprepared. I was unprepared to be the adult and to make my own decisions. So the safest choice for me was to find a job working for somebody else who could be the adult and tell me what the expectations were, while I kind of figured that out and settled into my role as a mother. And, that part of my journey and that part of my story was heavily dominated by kids. When like young kids just take a lot. And so I did start to lose a little bit of who I was and having these side hustles was my thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was
Yeah.
that one thing that was just mine, and I could do it during nap time, and I could work when the kids were asleep, and I could take it with me when we traveled, and it was my thing.
Yeah.
So it was a really empowering experience to have something that I was excited about and that I enjoyed doing, and that existed outside of the realm of, you know, all these other societal
roles.
expectations.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think even with that, it's like people being able to find the thing. I know right now a lot of people are really into like reading and sharing books that they're reading, and they're able to find an escape in some sort of having this
Yeah.
thing that does feel, it could be a hobby, it could be baking, it could be making sourdough, it could be learning to start grilling and
Yes.
kind of taking that on. But and then it's as silly as like collaging or painting. And even if you don't believe you're the best artist in the world, having something that's yours and that you're excited about and you want to pour into, and it feels like a little sacred space that you get to just be creative and kind of curious about, is sort of that spark that then ignites so many other areas of our lives and allows us to have more to pour from our cup. We're not trying to pour from this empty cup all the time.
100%. And honestly, trying, like I said, I worked for several different companies during that period of time, trying different types of jobs. And I know we call it, like, we really joked when I was working, we called them my jobbies, because it was something that I was excited about and that I was invested in. And doing this kind of side hustle, this little side hustle era for me, let me test out a bunch of different business styles and a bunch of different workflows and a bunch of different, like, I really enjoyed that process, and I really feel like I picked up so much. And so when I did have the opportunity to say, what would make me happy now? I had a well of experience to draw from. And I could look back at the last 6 or 7 years and say, I liked this aspect. I loved this thing. I loved this part of it. And I kind of cobbled together my dream job and my dream business. And I was able to build something around my lifestyle that I wanted, because I had enough experience of trying all of the things. I wasn't great at all of them, but I got to try a bunch of different things and really pick and choose different pieces that led me down the path that I eventually followed.
Yeah. And how cool that something that was almost a chance happening to further along your jobbies or whatever ended up introducing you to something that you were like, whoa, I actually really love this. And this is really fun. Initially, you were doing it to be better at checking the boxes for the job that was telling you, make sure you're writing content that makes sense. And you're like, all right, well, I'm going to learn this in and out. And to be able to be gifted that again, I think that when we're in alignment, we just have these things that happen that when we look back, it's like, had I not done that one thing, this whole domino wouldn't have happened that got me to where I am today. And so it's really neat to know that it was almost accidental falling into learning how much you love grilling. And then it turned into the ability to create your own business. And so once you hit that point where the light bulb moment came on and it was like, maybe I could do this on my own, what did you do? Like, what was the first thing that you did to start building that business out?
I literally Googled, can food blogs make money? Because I had no idea.
Right. Yeah.
I was an obsessive food blog reader. Like I still to this day will read cookbooks like they're novels. Like I want the life story about your grandma getting her goat's milk from the hills in Scotland to make this. Like I love the background of food. I love the story of food. I love the why you're cooking food this way. I want to know that your 9-year-old really liked it and they ate the leftovers cold in their packed lunch at school. That story and that emotion behind food and the storytelling behind food it was so lovely to me. And so I knew that I loved the entire aspect of what food blogging was and could be. I just didn't know if it could be a business. Because I'd worked for other larger companies that, as a professional recipe developer. So for them, I could see the tangible return of this type of content, because people find this recipe, they buy this grill, they make the money on the product sale. So I really didn't know if food blogging was like a tangible business model, or if this was just going to be something that would be, another job,
fill your little way, or exactly.
a creative pursuit. But I also knew that I wanted to do something that could be a business.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't just want to have a creative pursuit. I wanted to start a business. I thought that just sounded really great. And if I was going to pour my time and effort into something, I wanted it to have a tangible return and a real impact on my family, and our like financial well-being long term. So I just Googled, can you make money food blogging? And then I found out you could, and I was like, okay, we're off to the races. We picked the name, we locked down the social media handles. I bought the domain and a year's worth of hosting for $36. And I was like, okay, this feels like an investment that I can make, because remember, we were back to one income, and it was like enough that we could live off of it, but it wasn't, it was tight. We had 3 kids and
yeah, not a lot of extra money to be pouring into something, especially if you didn't think there was going to be a return.
Yeah, there was not, I could not land, I couldn't start a business that had a high overhead. So, and I'd worked, in digital media for so long. I was like, okay, this is the way that we got to go. It's low overhead, low barrier of entry. And I can practice for a little while before it really means anything. And if my mom's the only one that reads it until I figure it out, that's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was able to give myself a little bit of a kind of launch pad, but I went all in early and hard and fast. And I think it was that magic pairing of passion and the experience that I'd had leading up to starting it. So I talk to my kids about this, but I think there's something magical when you line up passion with aptitude, because you can have a really great talent for something. You could be the best naturally gifted basketball player in the world, but if you don't love basketball, it doesn't matter. Right. So I kind of found this magical union of passion and aptitude that really made the work not feel like work. And, yeah, it was a really fun time to be at the beginning of a business for me, because you're in alignment. Everything was kind of, the timing was right. The experience I'd had was right. The passion I had was right. And I found myself just kind of in the flow at that point in time. And it was a really great way to start.
Amazing. And simultaneously starting before you're ready. Like, you don't have, here's $5,000 to make me the most perfect website, and here's $5,000 a month for this content creator that's going to also come on board. I mean, I think there's something so important about making sure anyone listening that has this little inkling of an idea paired with passion in their mind, that it's going to be the right time, because you're going to feel that. But it's not like tomorrow the entire thing is established and you're going to have an app and you're going to have all these things developed. Like, so often I think the biggest barrier to starting is somebody feeling like it's not quite ready. And it's like, it's just never going to be fully ready. You have to start putting it out there. And I've learned that a smaller audience, like you said, maybe just your mom is reading it at first, that can be really helpful. Like, you don't want to launch with 1 million people that are now going to tear apart these things that you could slowly build out and get feedback and be able to actually be a little more, deliberate about how you're trying to kind of just adjust things as you go. And so a small audience can be a huge blessing, and you can get direct feedback and reach out to them and like, hey, what do you like? What don't you like? What would be helpful? And then as it scales, you do keep growing, but you're a little bit more ready by that point. So
yeah, it was an ugly, I mean, we don't want to use the Wayback Machine and go look at my old version of my website. We really don't. I made a free logo myself. The theme that I downloaded for WordPress was free. Like, I literally started this with $36 and a couple of ideas of recipes that I wanted to post first. And I will tell you, having that smaller audience was very beneficial, because it was instant feedback. It was my husband being like, who cares about a shrimp salad recipe? Like, is that really serving the audience you want to serve? Like, who are you talking to? What is? And I was like, I don't know. And like, I don't mean that, like, he wasn't being critical, but people that are invested in you as a person and offering you that feedback in real time because they want you to succeed was incredibly valuable. And now I do have a much larger audience, and they are also very vocal. I get immediate feedback if something they like or don't like. But having that kind of, like you said, that launch pad in the beginning as I started to figure it out and navigate the space was hugely beneficial. But no, it's not, I mean, I couldn't have, if I would have started with the end in mind, I probably would have quit, because I would have been overwhelmed by the amount of work that it would take to get me where I am now. but just starting with the one thing that I was excited about. Like, I am going to start a food blog about barbecue. And having that narrow focus was so valuable because it gave me space to become really great at that one thing. And then once I was great at that one thing, I could say, oh, well, what about we try this and we make an ebook?
Right.
And what about we try this and we make an app? And what about we try this and we have t-shirts? And what about we try this and now we have rubs and sauces? And now we have a co-packing facility. And, like there's just so many dominoes that I couldn't have anticipated at the time. My daughter now, she was 6 when I started this, and she's turning 16 in the fall. So it's been, she grew up with me during this whole thing. She's watched the whole thing unfold. And she asked me in the car the other day, she said, did you ever even have a plan? And I said, no.
Yeah.
Like, I had a dream or a vision of what it could be, but an actual here, like, it's the opposite of that millennial dream. It's the opposite of here are the prescribed checklists that you must follow. No, heck no. I did not have that. I just had a real hope for what it could be. And like you said, that internal inkling and drive that there could be more and things could be different. And I just took the next step every day.
Yeah. And what a cool kind of understanding and display of your own evolution, going from I need the adult in the room to tell me what to do, to then getting to the point of I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to do this thing because I believe in myself. And that alone, I mean, I think that the people that do the things are the ones that are just crazy enough to believe they can do the thing. Like, at the end of the day, when you talk to anybody that has created something that has turned into something very lucrative or very sustainable, every single one of them is like, there's not a blueprint for it. And a lot of people that really try to find the plan and the blueprint get so lost in that, as you said, you quit or you don't even start because it feels so overwhelming. Whereas if you do just start with the one thing, learn that, get used to it and get acquainted with how you want that to go, and then slowly add some of the other parts, it's such a more digestible, like little stepping stones across the river versus I'm just launching myself into the ocean. I mean, that's gonna not work well for anyone. So
in our business, I've always told myself, and now I reiterate this to our team, is like, we go up and then we can go out. Like, once we feel like we've really mastered this one vertical, this one tiny sliver. And for me, starting out, that was literally like just writing good barbecue recipes. Like, if I could just do well in this one sliver, then I can look next to me and say, okay, well, how can I take this and just kind of stack something next to it that can lift with it? Like, there's just no going out until you've really kind of nailed down that one thing.
And that right there is the plan. I think that's the thing when you look in hindsight, it wasn't so flushed out that it's this perfect 1 point A, 1 point B, 1 point C. This is what you're doing. But when you have some of those understandings, which it sounds like you were able to get at some of the other jobs that you had, you say this worked, this did not work. If I was doing it this way, I would tweak this. And so I always say no time is ever wasted. And wherever we find ourselves, we're absorbing things, we're learning things, we're able to challenge ourselves in some way. And we don't realize it. Even that dead end job that you say, oh, I wish I would have left earlier. I can guarantee you, maybe when you leave there, you don't know a whole bunch about how you want to run a business, but you might know a heck of a lot about how you don't want to run that business. And so there's always ways that I think we really can learn where we are. And it doesn't serve us to say, oh, I wish I would have started this many years ago. All those self-doubt type things are just lies in our brain, probably bathed in fear of like, this might actually work out. So why don't I just sit here and think of all the reasons it won't, and then stay in this little safe cocoon that, is going to cause me to be going crazy over the years because I have this idea I really want to do. And I just think that it's so important to take those risks on ourselves. And again, the worst that happens is we do try it. We don't enjoy it. It is something we pivot. And at least we can say, I tried the thing. I didn't just sit in fear and like never actually do it.
Yes. I mean, just a specific example of that, like, I am a big believer in like, you can kind of manifest whatever you really want. Like, you can set a dream and really work towards it. And one of my first steps when I started Hey Grill Hey was I just knew I had to get the name out there and get the brand out there and get people outside of my small circle interested. And so I started writing pitches for a little cooking segment on all of the local news channels. They all have like little daytime shows or morning news segments about, this girl cooking barbecue and teaching people how to grill in their backyard. And I must have sent out 20 emails, and I had one email me back, and I did this tiny little demo. I was so nervous. I practiced the night before. I had people come over and give me feedback on my day. I was so nervous. But I got up there and the lights turned on and the cameras turned on me. And it was my first time ever really being on camera, ever. And I had the best 5 minutes of my life. Like it really was just so fun. And from that moment, I told my husband that day, I was like, dude, I want to figure out how to do this all of the time. That was so great. And I really manifested in that moment, like, I'm going to have my own show on the Food Network. And through a series of like 5 years, we had small little things that just kept happening. But I was like laser focused, like that is going to be a thing that happens to me. And even as like the proof started stacking up that maybe that wasn't exactly what I wanted, we kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I had my own show on the Food Network, and I had an episode that aired during COVID, and it was called Grill Power, and it was this whole thing. And they called after it had aired. It aired in the top 20 shows of all shows the day that it aired.
Wow.
We had great ratings. It was a really successful pilot, and they still chose not to air the show. And it was such a bummer, but by that time, I had made so much peace with that being the outcome, because I knew in my heart, like that wasn't actually the path that was meant for me. But sometimes you have to walk down the road that's not meant for you and get to the end and realize, oh, it was the other way.
Yeah.
Because now I'm going the other way and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I had that experience.
Yeah.
It was a massive ego blow. It was a huge bummer. It was this thing that I'd been working towards for 5 years. And to have that whole process, see it through all the way to the end and do the thing and then get the no was like, oh, like I should have been crushed. But I think all of those years of walking that path, I think for me, the journey was walking the path. It wasn't the end result. It was all the things that I learned from the journey. And, we've been able to pivot and apply all of those things that I've learned about production value and television and being on camera to our YouTube channel, which is now a great part of our overall business strategy. So, sometimes the path we take is not always the path that's meant for us. But it doesn't mean that there's not value in taking the path and, chasing the little dreams that feel cool, even if they're not, what's meant for you long term.
Yeah, 100%. I'm super excited to continue this conversation. We're just going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back with Susie. Okay, yes, I think to your point about having this goal, being on a local news channel, and then having this thought of like, this is actually possible. Your subconscious sees in that moment, holy cow, I could really do anything that I wanted. And it's such a cool way of looking back retrospectively and saying, I'm still so proud and celebrate the fact that I did the thing versus focus on it didn't go the direction that maybe you thought you wanted it to be, this airing show weekly or whatever it may have been, because in those moments, that like rejection is often redirection to where you're actually supposed to be pouring yourself into and what you're actually supposed to be doing. And so I think another thing I've learned over and over again is to celebrate those wins and then be very curious about redirection. If it's coming into my life, instead of resisting it and being like, nope, the only measurement of success is I have this weekly show on the Food Network. And really, the universe, God, a bigger power, anything is telling you, you got the thing you wanted and I'm showing you it's possible, but this is actually your path. Like, don't pigeonhole yourself so much that you're only willing to accept this one path our little pea brain came up with, when really there's like something so much bigger for you. And I think, from some of the other creators we met and even your good friend Mandy, it's like you can have this thing handed to you that is, here's the weekly show, and actually say, holy cow, that's everything I thought I wanted. And actually it's not what I wanted. And so I think there's so much opportunity for that, and having grace for ourselves and being allowed to change our minds, being allowed to say, this is what I thought I wanted, and actually I'm going to take it this direction. We just hold ourselves, especially as women, in this space of being so hard on ourselves all the time. And like, it has to be this way or else I'm not successful, or it has to be that way. And I just think it's a gift to be able to be resilient and pivot and be okay doing something different, or, changing our minds. It's a huge gift to ourselves. And then the tiny eyes that are watching you, the kids that you're raising that are able to see this woman that is strong and driven and passionate, and also at times says, this is exactly what I want. And then the next day, never mind, this is not the direction I want to go.
Yeah. I think we play a game with our kids, and I think it's a really valuable game for everyone. It's called Highs and Lows, or some people call it Roses and Thorns.
Mm-hmm.
And we recount the highs of your day, but we also take time to acknowledge the low of your day.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be the failure.
Mm-hmm.
That can be the disappointment. That can be the forgotten assignment, or making a bad decision in how you interact with your friends,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
think normalizing the failures,
Mm-hmm.
normalizing the downturns, normalizing the lows of your day, and not dwelling on them and not harping on them and not saying today was the worst day ever and it'll never get better.
Mm-hmm.
But processing that your day is going to have ups and downs,
Mm-hmm.
and that just doing it on a tiny scale, just one day at a time of practice, I really think helps insulate you against the larger lows
Mm-hmm.
and the larger failures and the larger disappointments. Because if we normalize that, yes, there are going to be crappy days, but even on the crappy days,
Mm-hmm.
you can find a high, you can find a rose. It gives us permission to experience the full range of human emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us permission to say we can fail and we can recover, and we're going to try again tomorrow.
Right.
And tomorrow can have a good part and a bad part.
Mm-hmm.
And every day is going to have a little good and a little bad, and nobody's ever going to be happy and perfect and on a growth trajectory all of the time.
Right.
Normalizing that, I think, is really powerful. Like you said, resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge separator in all of my years being a entrepreneur, especially a women-owned business in a male-dominated space. The people that I find that have the most long-term success, and I don't mean success in the terms of your business is monetarily giving you all of these things, but I mean a real like internal sense of balance and progress and, satisfaction in the work that you're doing. To me, that's more a measure of success. But the people that are doing that seem to have a little bit of an insulation against failure. It doesn't mean that they don't fail. It means that emotionally they can recover from failure. One of my friends has, I don't know if she got this quote from somewhere, so I don't want to miscredit, but she is famous, Rachel, the stay-at-home chef. She's one of my best friends and one of my mentors in the food blogging space. But she says all the time, success is just going from, that's one she quotes, but I know she didn't say it first, but we talk about it a lot. Success is just going from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm.
Wow.
It's just maintaining this belief that it's going to work out, and that you can continue to move through the failure without losing the enthusiasm for what you're working on. And, there's a lot of joy and autonomy and individual growth that comes through moving through that failure. So
we never know how close we are to a breakthrough. And I think that's the other thing that's so disheartening when people may quit before they give it the full go, because I think especially in entrepreneurship, it's really unexpected things. And with like the virality of the internet these days, it's so unpredictable. Something that has performed very well and algorithmically fine for weeks or months, all of a sudden can tank, and then you're reaching nobody. And it's this very frustrating kind of difficulty with owning the audience in a sense, or being able to have a direct, relationship with them at times. And then it surprises you in a good way. And all of a sudden something takes off, or you get a phone call, or you get a, hey, I saw your blog and I'd love to interview, or whatever it may be. And so I think that's the other thing, is because it's not this linear path, not seeing it through. And I love that, like not losing enthusiasm, even when you're experiencing what feels like a failure or a setback. is what's going to keep you on the course. And as long as you're going to stay the course, it will be successful. It might not look exactly how you thought it would, but that's a big takeaway I got from talking to so many people at so many different walks of life in their business over the last few weeks is you can really do it. And anyone I've spoken to that is further along than me is like, oh, 100%. Like if you want to do it, you can do it. It's just a matter of not losing that enthusiasm and not throwing in the towel or saying, I'm going to go backwards, to this area of comfort instead of continuing to push forward. And it's very inspiring to hear that so many people don't even bat an eye if I'm talking to them about what I want to do. And they're like, yeah, you can do it. I've done it. You just have to keep staying the course,
Yep.
So I think it's pretty amazing. So speaking a little bit on the partnership, we've got Taste Test Todd. It sounds like your husband is just amazing. For any listeners that are maybe in a place of calling in partnership into their life or are wrestling with maybe the person that they're with is the right person or not, what are some of the characteristics within your marriage, within your partnership that have helped you on this journey? And what's been kind of the most important aspects of support that you've had from him?
Oh, that's such a great question. Todd and I got married pretty young. We found each other pretty young. I actually met him when I was 17. And so I have to tell you, I go back all the time and like high five teen Susie for having the foresight to marry somebody that was so, you can't predict the future and you never know exactly who the right person is going to be because the people that Todd and I were then aren't the people we are now. But I think the most important attributes that both of us have that have led to a really long-term partnership is we share very similar core values. And a couple of those core values that are really crucial to both of us are integrity. It's the basis and the formation of our marital relationship, but also our professional relationship. And when we have discussions of core values for our business with our employees and with our team, integrity is always top of mind. And so I think one reason that's been so crucial for us is there's no room for deceit or a lack of trust, or we're always like our opinions aren't always in alignment. We always have difference of opinions, and how we execute the things that we do, and our personalities are very, very, very different. But our core values of being honest people and being honest with each other and being honest with ourselves, it has been really crucial to us building something that lasts. Because I know that, like I said, he was one of my earlier readers of the blog, and he was like, why are you writing this? Like, he will always tell me the truth, and I will always tell him the truth. And it's not comfortable, but it's been really impactful for us to just always be able to tell each other the truth. And to build a business that's based on, I'm going to do the thing that I say that I'm going to do. And I'm going to be the person that I say that I am. And following through with not just words, but actions is really crucial. So that's been a huge one. I would say that's the cornerstone, the foundation piece that we've been able to build. I think we have 4 businesses now and 3 children and 18 years of marriage. We've known each other for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in August. But that's the rock solid pieces that I believe that we are both people of integrity. I think the other thing is he is my biggest cheerleader. I think we try to be each other's biggest cheerleaders. I don't know if he probably would say the same thing. Like, I don't think I'm always great at it. I don't think I'm always his biggest cheerleader either. But we try our darndest to be thrilled for whatever the other person is excited about and going through. He has had to walk a really tough road. Being raised in the same kind of time frame as I was, things were changing, but we were still raised pretty traditionally. Husband goes to work, provides the income, mom raises the kids. I think it's so different now, but back then it still really was kind of that ideal, was that nuclear life and that nuclear family. And like I said, we did all the things. He got the degree, the shiny, diploma and the cubicle, and then he got promoted to the office and he had a door, and all of the trappings of corporate, success and husband accomplishments and providing for the family. And he did all of the things. And he wasn't super happy either. And again, so we were able to talk about that with integrity, but he had to give up a lot of that. He wasn't thrilled with the corporate environment. Honestly, it was not a great fit for him. He's a creative person, and he was kind of dying in there. But so he was happy to leave for those reasons, but leaving behind being the provider of your family and fulfilling all of the gender identified roles that society and his family had placed on him growing up to work at that time for his wife and the business that she had built, especially in a barbecue and grilling space, which, probably should have been his business if we're looking at things
disrupted so many
the same
more.
filter. And his willingness to do that and to be my biggest cheerleader and my biggest supporter. I mean, I told him, I'm like, I think we can do this. I think I can make this something that we can do. I would love to retire you from accounting. I would love to have you come home and work with me. And I would love for this dream to be something that we share. He was all in. It wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, he had reservations financially and concerns because he was an accountant. And he's like, but we got to pay like the bills. I'm like, okay, the bills, right. The bills. But he would stay up. He taught himself how to edit videos, and he would stay up till 2 a.m. editing videos and go to sleep and wake up at 6 a.m. and go to work for 8 to 10 hours, So he was not just a cheerleader and like, you got this, you can do it, but he showed up for me and for us and for our business. And that's when it really started to transition to being something that we did together. And we've since, like, our roles and responsibilities have shifted within the business so many times. But I think he's always kind of just been my biggest cheerleader, and he will jump in with 2 feet. Like I said, our personalities are so opposite. I'm the visionary. I'm big picture, cool things, all these opportunities. And he's like, okay, but reality is this. So he's a really good offset and a really good balance to who I am, but he's never let his logistical side
like stifle
take
you
away. Yes. Yes. It's always just been, look at it this way.
Right.
So that, again, bills.
Yeah.
But that's more like practical, functional, and not, he's never talked down to my ideas or my, he's never limited my potential. So anyway, I think those are our 2 qualities, is that integrity and that always being each other's cheerleader. Even when it, sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit to let your partner shine. And he's been willing to do that for me. And that's been a real blessing.
Really is. And just to know that the person you're likely spending the most of your time with, if it's partnership or marriage, is in your corner and believes in you. I think there are a lot of people that unfortunately find themselves in situations where it's this dynamic of, I'm constantly, trying to be good enough for them to celebrate me. I'm trying to find that. And at the end of the day, it may just not be the right fit, or that person might not want to celebrate their partner or their wife, especially in this non-traditional way. And so it's really remarkable to hear that side of the story. And then if you would share a little bit about then what it was like, I believe around Christmas time, but when he was able to actually leave that corporate job and kind of what that felt like for your family.
Yeah. I set a goal. I gave myself a year to build the business up to the point where he could leave. Because like I said, he wasn't thrilled with his corporate job. And we really get along well. The idea of us being together every day and working together every day was something that was like really exciting and enticing to us to be able to do that together and have that kind of, synchronicity between us. So I set a goal. I said, we're going to do this by December. And it took all year. And that was the year, like I said, he was up all night helping me edit videos till 2 a.m. We were both so invested in making this dream a reality for that 6 months to a year. And it was like the most hustle that we have ever hustled in our lives, while also like having toddlers and young children and a career and all the things. But he was really committed to help me make that happen. And so he did. He was able to quit his job in December. We made it to our goal, which was
Mhm.
very, very exciting.
Mhm.
And then we spent the next 6 months trying to figure out again, like, oh no, who's the boss? Who tells us
Right.
what to do?
Yeah.
Not like, are you the boss or am I the boss? But like, is there somebody that's not us that can tell us
Mhm.
what to do and how to navigate this?
Mhm.
But again, there wasn't. So it took us probably a good 6 months of saying, okay, again, that communication and that integrity and that like this is what you're great at and this is what I'm great at. And this is where we can fulfill each of those roles and responsibilities
Mhm.
efficiently and effectively and have a lot of satisfaction. And here's the stuff that we hate doing in the middle, and we're just going to divide those tasks up
Right.
evenly so we both have to do crap we don't love. Because
Mhm.
that is true in business, even when you're the most passionate about it, and even when it's the best time of your life and you have just accomplished this amazing goal, like somebody still has to do the taxes. Like
Mhm.
it just is.
Right.
So we I think we've readjusted again like 12 times since then. But it's just constantly been a game of managing what we're great at and finding our strengths, allowing the other person to have their strengths.
Mhm.
And like Todd's strengths don't have to be my strengths. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes we want the people that we work with, whether it's our partner, our spouse, an employee,
Mhm.
whoever, we want them to be good at what we're good at
Mhm.
because it's easy.
Mhm.
Um, but being able to recognize that like his strengths are his strength. He has such a higher level of emotional intelligence than I do. And he's able to relate to people so much better than I am. And he has all of these amazing interpersonal skills that he developed from working in an office that I like lost from working from home on my laptop by myself for all of those years.
Yeah.
It's a real asset and a real strength to bring into the business.
Mhm.
And anyway, his accounting background has been hugely valuable.
Uh,
So it was great to allow him to bring in his own skill set and not feel like I needed to mold him into being
Mhm.
like or
Yeah.
vice versa.
Mhm.
And just let his own strengths shine and find opportunities and ways for him to utilize those strengths to benefit the business overall.
For
Was an
sure.
adjustment period, but it was cool.
Yeah, and those strengths that somebody else has that you might not possess fill in the gaps and vice versa. If we
Yeah.
were just with mirror image copies of ourselves all the time, we wouldn't have the foresight to be able to see some of those gaps because, different people thinking different ways is so
Yeah.
helpful and beneficial.
And I'd probably never pay my taxes because I would
Right.
just forget every year.
Yeah. Little minor detail that actually becomes a big thing that's pretty important in owning a
Well,
business. So
yeah, there are perks to having an accountant for a husband join you in your
for
business. It helps.
sure. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Is there anything that looking back you would share with past versions of yourself, kind of knowing what you know now?
I know I don't want to sound like this is egotistical, so I'm not going to apologize for it because I don't think it is.
Mhm,
But I think a lot of times we discount our accomplishments and we
mhm,
downplay what we've done and we don't celebrate how far we have come. But each version of myself, if I compare her to now, I'm like, oh, she didn't know anything.
mhm,
But I really am so proud. Like I said, I mentally high five 17-year-old Susie for like finding Todd and building what we built. But I'm also really proud of like 20-year-old Susie who had a or 21-year-old Susie who had a new baby and said there's got to be something else. Like I don't know what it is, but there has to be something more. And finding that first coupon job
mhm,
and I'm really proud of the Susie that in 2015 started a business, and I'm really proud of 2017 Susie that retired her husband from her job. And um, so I don't think I'd go back and warn her about anything, or I would just give her a high five and a hug and be like, dude, you are killing it. Like
mhm,
with what you have right now, you are doing the absolute best you can.
mhm,
And it doesn't mean that every day is perfect. Doesn't
mhm,
mean that every day you accomplish something or you even move the needle. There were a lot of days that I did not move the needle.
mhm.
I mean, I think I tried to quit blogging the entire second summer because I was just overwhelmed and exhausted. And I was like, nobody cares. I'm not doing this anymore. This is a waste of my life and my time.
Mhm,
Not every day moved the needle, you
mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And I used to beat myself up about that not
Mhm,
every day was my most productive day ever. But
mhm,
looking back, seeing how far I still was able to come with the work that I was able to do
mhm.
gives me a lot of peace in right now to say, oh, okay, it's okay. I can just take a deep breath. and I can just keep my feet pointed in the right direction, and I'll eventually end up where I need to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really proud of past me, and I would tell her to just keep on keeping on. And it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be easy, and there are going to be messy days and hard days. But the good days far outnumber the bad ones. And the stuff that I remember, I don't know. The failures kind of all just like blur together as a part of like the story. But what really sticks out to me is like the good moments, you know, that one relationship or that one comment from a reader, or, you know, having my kid ask me in the car, dude, you did this. Did you plan it?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and having my kids with me on this journey, and the people that have come with me from the beginning and been involved for so long and have seen the progression and seen the growth and seen the journey, like those are the things that stand out to me. So anyway, I'm really proud of what I've done and where I've come, and I'm proud of the person who I was that didn't know that this would be successful and did it anyway. So I think that's really the most scary thing is you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Right.
But you do it anyway. And just that hope and that faith is so sweet and so precious and so great.
Yeah, taking time to clap for ourselves, which is difficult because again, societally, it's like, be really good, but don't be so good. Be pretty, but don't be too pretty. Be nice to everyone, but don't be too nice to everyone. There's just all these weird conflicting pressures. And then it's like, do really good at everything you do, but make sure you don't tell anyone because then you're bragging. And instead it's like, man, I want to create a community where we just high five each other, celebrate each other. Of course, in those moments that are the lows too, it's like, just keep going, like you've got it. And your future version of yourself is going to be so proud of this version of yourself. It was sitting here saying, I don't think I can do this. And then it's like, no, you really can. And then the minute you do it, shout it to the world, call those people that you know are in your corner and share it with them and share in the excitement. Because again, like, what's the point if we're just going to hide all of the, you know, celebratory successes that we have? It's something to be so proud about, especially when you know how much it's taken to get there. And so having that insight, and then knowing even today with a very successful business, having moments where you probably are like, I don't know what we're going to do next, or we need to kind of pivot here, or these,
all
you know, it
time.
never ends. Yeah.
No, I'm still having the same stress and the same conversations and the same fear of bad outcomes that I had a decade ago. That doesn't go away. And it's even that sense of like imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to believe that I am capable of doing this? Once I realized that all of those feelings were permanent, not permanent, like you'll never not feel them, but like they're universal. We all feel imposter syndrome. The person that you look up to, that you imagine is just killing it in every aspect of their life, is battling self-doubt, is battling imposter syndrome, is wondering if her next move is the right next move. And once you humanize your heroes, I think it really allows you to just embody the values that you care about instead of becoming so focused on the end result. And if you can live your values, and if you can take one step at a time and move the direction that you want to move, then the journey itself becomes a lot more enjoyable of a journey and a lot less of a stressful, like you're not constantly trapped in a state of, you know, that emotional paralysis of like, I can't do this. Because there are times that it gets heavy, but honestly, it's universal. It's hard for all of us. Nobody has it easy. The big shiny, you know, numbers on the stage from a keynote address or the podcast you listen to or the book you read, you're seeing a Polaroid picture snapshot of the actual journey. And yes, they might be at that point saying, holy crap, I did it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. But you don't see all the sleepless nights that got them there. And normalizing that process, I think, is so powerful. Normalizing it for yourself too. Like, I am going to experience this and it is going to be hard. And I can still keep moving forward. I just think it's so impactful and so powerful.
So powerful. What would you consider your personal version of Rednell energy? Like, what's the thing that makes you feel empowered and like you deserve to take up space or could sit at any table? Does anything come to mind for you?
I think it is it's like the new age equivalent of picturing everyone in the audience in their underwear.
Okay.
It's not that I have more, I don't know, more value or I'm more deserving of taking up space as anyone else. It's that we're all deserving of taking up the same exact amount of space.
Yeah.
Picturing all humans as equals, even those who have accomplished things that you might consider more grand or valuable or important. Putting everyone on the same equal playing field makes you on the same equal playing field, because if it's true for everyone else, it has to be true for you, because you are not special, whether it's worse than everyone else. You're special because you're worse than everyone else. A lot of people believe that. Like, my life is harder, so that makes me special. But you're not special on your good days either.
Right.
Like, I'm special because I'm better than everyone else. It doesn't mean don't celebrate your accomplishments, but it means in the world of humanity, like, we are all the same. We were all born, we all live, we're all going to die. Nobody's getting out of here alive. And what it looks like in between might be different, but who we really are at our core and what matters to us is really similar. We're more alike than we are different.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah, just being able to see everyone on an equal playing field means that we all can have that same level of energy. We're all worthy of that same seat at the table, that same sense of empowerment and value and contribution. And we can all bring something that matters to the world. So anyway, I feel really great when I'm in a group of women. Like, I have a group of other female entrepreneurs that I get together with a couple of times a year. And I always leave those meetings, and so many of them are so much more successful than I am in the business space. But leaving those meetings feeling like, oh my gosh, we're all the same, really, is one of the most empowering things to me. And it leaves me feeling so like hyped up and energized and ready to go out and do what I need to do. That I really look forward to those gatherings a couple of times a year, because it matters, it matters. It's good to see people that you idolize as a real person. And
as a human, and same exact struggles. And even if their problem feels, 10 miles down the road from where you're even at in your business, hearing that same person that is maybe where you would want to be, and they're still feeling some of those same feelings, it does make us all be in the same human experience. And taking those heroes off of the pedestal and instead letting us all have the grace of being human, because those people that are on the pedestal, that would be a really big shoes to fill too. I don't want to be the person that, like, someone's got on their vision board of like, that's who I want to be, because I'm just a normal person too. And I want to be able to be human, and I want to be able to be imperfect. And so allowing those around us to also be human and see us as being human is such a gift. Yeah.
Also pulling off a really big brisket.
Okay, there it is. I love that.
That's another one.
Amazing. I can understand how that would be such an empowering feeling. I love it. And a really good one at that too. Probably the best. Yeah.
Plus you get to eat at the end. It's a win-win.
Win-win. Awesome, Susie. Well, how can some of our listeners find you if they want to connect with you or follow you or, subscribe to Hey Girl Hey? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, all of our socials are just at Hey Grill Hey. The website's heygrillhey.com. This is kind of a unique conversation for me, if I'm being honest. I spend most of my time talking about barbecue and grilling. Business is like a tiny little kinky on the hands of what I do professionally. So there's not a lot of ways for you to connect with me if you just want to talk about business stuff, unless you like shoot me an email or a message or something. But yeah, all the barbecue stuff's at Hey Grill Hey online and all across the internet.
Awesome. I love it so much. And all of that social and everything will be linked in the show notes as well, so that you can follow Susie and learn how to make some amazing brisket. I appreciate you so much for being on the podcast. I think, again, these conversations are so important and really fill my cup, and then also give me such inspiration in knowing, like you said, everyone that we admire and idolize and we're looking around at as maybe being so much further along than we are, have been in the same shoes that we're standing in right now. And we are all so much more alike than we are different. So I just really appreciate your time.
Yeah, this was a great conversation. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
Yeah, of course. And as always, Red Nail Energy listeners, you're not alone. You're seen. You are so loved. And we will catch you next week on the next episode.